So I'm going to get started. Before I start, I just want to make sure everybody can see my presentation, and also I want to make sure that everybody has the chat in front of them. I found out, and also it's part of the research that we've done for our own presentation, but a lot of times chatting is a lot easier to communicate during a presentation. Sometimes you don't want to interrupt someone, but you have a thought that you want to put down, so you can just write it in the chat. So before we start, I want all of you to just say hi or hello or something in the chat pod, so we can see that you found it and you know how to use it. Hi Val. Hello Lindsay. Hello. Okay. Shushma. Hugo. Hello. If someone is having trouble finding it, you can also chime in and talk if you want. I have absolutely no problem. You can stop me at any time. An easy presentation. But you can also chat, and I will try and pick it up as I go through the presentation. Broadcasting from Long Beach. So my name is David Corvella. I'm the Senior Director of System-Wide Professional Development here at the Chancellor's Office at California State University. And I will show you how we built a studio here at the Chancellor's Office and how we're using it for synchronous online learning, or it's a fancy word for live online learning. Although we have other uses for our studio that I will also mention later on. So in today's presentation, I'll talk about a little bit about my team and what we do. We don't just have the studio; we have other areas that we manage here at for the CSU. But then I'll go into the business need for our studio and how it all started, how we developed the studio. I'll get into the weeds and talk about the technical aspects of it. I tried not to get too technical, so it's not too boring, but if anybody has any questions about it, then I'm happy to either answer it now during the presentation or later on. And then other functions that we're using the studio for, and I'll leave some time for Q&A, although as I said, if you have any questions throughout the presentation, you can just put them in the chat or just chime in and ask them. So let's talk about my team a little bit. System-wide professional development. We cover all the areas that you see here. Compliance, for example, it's a must in every organization. Sexual harassment, sexual violence, conflict of interest, and so on. There are many employees at the California State University on our campuses, and we provide all the resources for their compliance. Leadership development is a function that we started in the last 2 years, where we are working on programs for leadership development for our campuses, whether it's an executive leadership development to try and develop presidents for our universities, all the way to campus leadership development programs that will work individually with campuses. We work on instructor-led training. Our latest initiative is basic supervisory skills training that we have launched at almost every campus at the CSU. We do media productions and studio broadcasting that I will be talking about during this presentation. We author e-learning with almost every main authoring tool that is out there, whether it's Articulate, Captivate, Camtasia, whatever it is, and my team interacts with all of that. And then talent management, we started venturing into talent management, the different aspects of talent management for the CSU to maybe create some synergies between our campuses. And what I call learning systems is basically our learning management systems. We currently have a contract with Skillsoft and Skillport. So that's the main way that we communicate content to our campuses. We also use Blackboard for our leadership development program, and any other system that we have. We're in the process of doing a request for proposal, an RFP for a new system and new content for the CSU. So we'll see what happens with that. So that's a lot of work. It's being done all year from the Chancellor's office and with my team. That includes really myself and a lot of people for this initiative, but that's really strong people. So let's jump into the studio itself, and let's see why did we want to build this studio. And someone need to mute someone here because I'm getting some echo here. So basically, this California State University is a large system with 23 campuses and actually more locations than the 23 locations. The Chancellor's office is the 24th location. There are some satellite campuses. For example, there is a Cal State San Bernardino as a satellite office, satellite campus somewhere next to Palm Springs. And it is spread on a large geographic area. We have campuses all the way at Humboldt in the north and San Diego in the south, which creates many employees in different areas, 55,000 employees if we include our student assistants and grad assistants that are in the system. In addition to that, we also have auxiliaries that are an additional 25,000 employees. So we're getting to 80,000 employees very easily of people that need to consume content. The learning and development resources on the campuses vary according to the campus. Actually, at your campus, Fullerton, or I would say I'm an alum, so my campus, Fullerton, there is actually an extensive team that supports learning and development. But smaller campuses, such as Bakersfield, for example, doesn't necessarily have a learning and development individual. There is an HR person that also has the learning and development responsibilities under their umbrella. So we have a small central team, and we see our area as an area that will provide at least the minimal requirement or help provide some of the resources that employees would want to get on a campus in different levels. And in order to do that, with a small team in place, we would need to find some type of solution where we can reach all those campuses together, which is why online training is one of our strongest areas. With online training, you can create e-learning courses, and as I mentioned earlier, we have a contract with Skillsoft, but which provides us a lot of online training. But if we wanted to create any live training, that was a bit more challenging, because to do an instructor-led training in every campus with 4 people would be a bit difficult. In addition to that, we also sometimes have even the campuses that have more resources might not be able to pull the resources together in order to get a presenter that might be expensive or hard to get, or will be able to get to all 23 campuses just for time resources. So if we can get someone here centrally and put them on an online live training and broadcast it to all the campuses at once, we might be able to get a resource that other campuses would not be able to get on their own. So all of that together, and you might have seen it in the intro to the presentation, we were able to train in the last 5 years, about 1,800 participants. We saved 965,000 miles of travel, which equates to 473,000 pounds of CO2, and reduced the cost by almost $600,000. Now you might ask yourself, how do I know that? Well, the system that we use actually has an app inside it, and it's called Carbon Footprint. And before every presentation that we do live, we ask the participants to actually put their zip code, put their address, and refresh it. So we get, so the system calculates automatically all the statistics that I just gave you, the amount of miles that they would have traveled if they came to the Chancellor's office to see this presentation, the amount of CO2 that was reduced by them not traveling, and the amount of money that was potentially saved. It's not a direct and clear calculation, and we try to look at the numbers. When we did the calculation for the last 5 years, we took a lot of presentations that we've done and said, you know what, this presentation would have not happened on 23 campuses, or 23 campuses would have not traveled for this type of presentation. So let's not calculate this one. And by cleaning up all of the presentations that we thought would not fit in the calculation, that's how we arrived to this number. Again, if anybody has any questions about this so far, please feel free to stop me and ask. So that's why we decided to build a studio. But building a studio with little resources was not that easy. And as you know, we are a state-operated function, and we have a state budget, which is not that large. I came before that from the corporate world, and I worked for Hilton Hotels. where in learning and development, I had a budget of about $1.5 million a year. And I can't even say that I have here at the Chancellor's office. So how do I build a studio, an actual full-scale studio to do that? Where do I find the resources? My FTEs were not even approved at the time. So how do we get that going on? So it was really starting with a vision and then moving forward to building all the parts one by one. So this is how the studio looked like at the beginning. And that's pretty much what you see on the picture on the left is a meeting room. That's how the meeting rooms at the Chancellor did. Is no one wanted to give us any room to create this solution. So what we did is we pretty much squatted. We took a meeting room and we squatted on that meeting room. We booked it for the next few months forward, and then every month we would continue to book the meeting room on and on. We put all of our equipment in there until it kind of became a fact that this is not a meeting room anymore. It's never available. It became the studio. It wasn't that pretty, as you can see on the picture on the left, or on the right, sorry. It's a bunch of computers that we were able to gather from begging other departments to give us a laptop here, a laptop there. We got some screens that were left over from a media department. We brought some webcams, just simple webcams. And we found a software that we can use in order to start our broadcasting. And by putting these 6 computers on a table, this is basically how we got started. Now, if I move to the next picture, you will see it from a different point of view. Actually, that's another room that we try on the right, another room that we tried to take at some point. But if you see on the left, this is an actual webcast that was in progress. The presenters were sitting in front of the computer. There was a projector in the room that was projecting the actual webcast, the actual broadcasting, and we had a person that was managing all of it and was being really our moderator for all of these productions. Through that, we developed our process. How do we start a production? Who do we do productions with? What is the process for a production? How many rehearsals do we need to do? How do we develop content for the production? What do we need to have in the productions in order for them to be successful? What type of interactions? What works? What doesn't work? What technology do we need to get? That's a lot of trial and error and a lot of research that I had to go through that. And at the beginning, it was just us trying to figure out, okay, how does this work? How would this work? How can we make sure that the failure that we had today will not happen again? What can we add to our process? And we now have a full production process in place that when you reach out to us and say, I want to do this certain production, we start working with you. For example, we're working on a legal series right now with our legal department. And our first step is to find out the topics and, the need for the presentations. We're talking about 5 presentations throughout next year. But also when the presenters are going to be available, when can we start working with them on content, when can we do rehearsals with them, and how do we do the marketing for the content that we're about to create so campuses can get it on time and solicit participation on campuses. On the picture on the right, you see a lot of cables. The amount of cables that we have running through our current studio are crazy, but we were able to hide them pretty well, which really led us to the next level of our evolution with the studio, and that was a methodological facelift, I like to call it. So I'll go to the next picture. But we decided, if you look at the picture on the left, you see people sitting in front of a computer, and if we're doing a broadcast, if we're trying to create interaction, we realize that the first thing that we need to do is to create interaction in the room between the presenters, between the people that are actually the subject matter experts. And if they're not looking at each other, they're just looking at a screen, then there's an issue with that. So we started an entire design process of our studio, and this is the buildup of the new studio. Being an organization that is based in Long Beach, we're not far from LA, we're not far from Hollywood, and we knew that this would be a great place for us to find someone to help us design a set. So we reached out to various people that we knew that are in the entertainment business and asked them, hey, can you put us in touch with someone that designs sets? And we ended up finding someone that actually designed the sets for the show The Voice, and they designed a set for us, and they built it in that meeting room. So again, what you're seeing in the pictures here, that's the same meeting room that you saw earlier. I'll go backwards. This meeting room on the left here, that's the exact same meeting room that the set is being built on. So we built a full set, and the idea is to make it look more like a newsroom, an anchor sitting behind the table. We knew that we couldn't use the cameras that we were using before, those little webcams, because we wanted to increase the quality. And our final product is what you see on this picture. It is this kind of L-shaped table that can fit up to 7 presenters at a time. That's in case we're doing a panel with the cameras, the lights, the mics, and a lot of the equipment that I will be mentioning soon. The person you see in the picture is our executive producer, and she manages all of these productions. All the pictures that you see on the wall are different people that are presented in our different productions. And we had to, as we went through this, we learned a lot about the different equipment we buy. We had to find equipment such as, like I mentioned, the cameras earlier and the controllers, but even simple things like the lights that we have on the wall and all the electricity that is necessary here. We had to get an electrician to come in and actually run additional breakers for this room, so this room can manage on its own. So if you remember, originally it was 6 laptops with webcams, and now we're talking about iPads for the presenters, lights, and so on. So our next slide is also a few more pictures with some more light. You see the signage on the wall. On the picture on the left, you see the screen that the executive producer is looking at, and this is how actually we manage the footage that comes into the production. We did a lot of research about the type of switchers that we can use, and that's equipment that can cost a lot of money. If you look at the full production switchers that TV studios are using, for example, those could cost $20,000–$25,000, which is money that we simply didn't have. So the solution that you're seeing and that we're using right now, which is working really well for us, is a software called ManyCam, and it cost us $50. That was after about 3 months of going to different vendors and looking at different solutions and switchers and trying to find different types of ways for us to manage our cameras, and we ended up finding one for $50. It was a really funny and a victorious moment for us. So let me go into the weeds a little bit and try to explain how this works. What we are using for our webcast or for our broadcasting is Adobe Connect. And Adobe Connect comes with a lot of capabilities. It can be expensive depending on how you deploy Adobe Connect. If you deploy it in the cloud through Adobe Connect, which many companies and corporations are doing, then it's a very hefty price for what you're getting. However, what we were able to do is to install an instance of Adobe Connect. Back at the time, it was not even called Adobe Connect, but install it on our servers, and we've upgraded it since then. However, it's quite a complex setup. If you see over here, you know, the little microphones on the left bottom corner are the microphones that are in the studio. Those need to go to a mixer that then go to a studio computer. All of that has to go to the CSU network and connect with the Adobe Connect server. With that, also, we found out that you know, of course, all of it needs to be connected to the internet, and the audience is connecting to the internet to their computers. But if we wanted to provide the phone connection like we have right now on this call through Zoom, then we had to get a Flash Media Gateway, and through a company called ZipDX, also connected to the phone network. And that's when we started to see some issues. We started to see some issues with the quality of our audio and video and how synced they are. And it's something that originally we thought was related to our specific setup, but then we found out through talking to other companies and organizations that are using Adobe Connect that it's really something that Adobe Connect sometimes has issues with. So that's when we started doing more research, and this is something that is already started to interleave with my master's degree at Fullerton at the MSIDT program. So I was really able to look into some research was done on the topic to make additional conclusions, and that's also what I did my final project on. But we were basically able to find out that this whole area with the ZDX and the Flash Media Gateway and the phone network is what was causing a lot of problems for us, where the system was sometimes melting. I know that's not a scientific term, but the system was melting and the production was not working well. And through other research, we also realized that this is not really what participants need. I know that it's nice to be able to call, but our production usually have a lot of people on them. We talk about a minimum of 50 people to 20 to 50 people at a minimum. In some productions, we have 200 and 250 people on them. Having 250 people being able to talk on the phone during a presentation is just not something that we really need. We knew that we needed better ways to manage the communications. We wanted to create interactions and provide people with the ability to communicate with us during a presentation so they can ask questions, but audio was not really one of them. In addition to that, we also found out through some research that I found in our library, thank you, Lindsay, that there is a perception of quality if audio and video are not synced. And there's a certain amount of seconds, I don't remember top of my head, a certain amount of seconds or milliseconds that if the delay between audio and video is longer than that, then a production will be perceived as a low quality. And that's a risk that we were not willing to take. So that led us to remove this entire area of the phone bridge and providing the main interaction through the chat room. And we have not seen any reduction in quality of our production due to that. People just love to have the chat there, and I see that you guys are starting to get used to that as well. It's much easier to chat than to actually ask the question. So let's go to some of your questions. Wow, that's amazing. Thank you for that comment. What was the name of the product? The name of the product was ManyCam. ManyCam is one word. $50. You can buy an Apple or a PC version. So I didn't catch a name. Yes, go MSID Think. Thank you guys for all your help. Interesting. Go Lindsay. So it really led us to this solution. Now, chatting is not the only way that we interact. There are videos that we created for presenters to show them how to interact with audience. There are polls that we can put during our presentation. That's why we love Adobe Connect so much, because it gives us all these different interactions, like a thumbs up, thumbs down, clapping your hands, chatting in the chat pod, and most importantly for the CSU, since we are a public entity, and even if we were not, very important for us is to have closed captioning for our sessions. So for accessibility reasons, if someone is deaf, for example, they can still follow the presentation, and we have a live closed captioner coming on each one of our presentations. So having all of that together really created a great solution. So let's go a little bit more into the weed, and let me show you what we did. What are the components of the studio? So right now we're using the Adobe Connect 9.5. As I mentioned, it's a hosted version, so it's on our servers. We have the Shure mic mixer synthesizer, so that's where all the mics are coming into, and the Sennheiser's lavalier mic. So when a presenter comes in, there's actually a little lavalier mic that just clips on their shirt, and that goes into the mixer. We have a main production PC that's a pumped up PC that we built ourselves with a strong video card and a strong processor, so it can handle all the information that is coming in. You saw the TV monitor. That's what the presenter is seeing in front of them while they're presenting, so they can see what the participants are seeing. They can see the questions and everything. The projecting computer. So in order to get the content onto that TV, we need to have a simple computer that is just logged in as a participant and is just acting as a projector connected to an HDMI cord. We have the two Panasonic robotic cameras. Let me just go back because that's actually important. So let me go back. You see the camera right there. There are two little cameras next to the TV, one on the right and one on the left. Those are robotic cameras, and they can get different angles. There's a controller for that camera that the producer can move around. And what I mentioned earlier with the ManyCam solution, so basically our executive producer will have the picture on the presenter, the camera on the presenter. She'll play with the other camera to get another angle, and then through ManyCam, she can just switch them and do a swap, a nice swap into it and switch between the cameras. So the ManyCam video switcher, a recording computer, which is a separate computer, again, just logged in as a user. We, even though you can record on Adobe Connect, we would like to have our own backup recording so we can edit it better later on, and we just record that separately. We have a backup host computer just in case something happens and our regular computer doesn't work. There are two hosts in the session, a minimum of two hosts in the session at any given time. If we have a very strong, important presentation, what we will do is myself or someone else on my team will actually go to a separate room, and they will also log in with their own laptop computer as a host, just as a backup as well, so we can have that. But that's just for the bigger size presentations. LED studio lights. We are a green building here, so it was important that all of our lights are LED and that are conserving electricity. The presenter table you saw earlier with 5 to 6, and you can actually squeeze 7 people there if you need to. The digital studio clock, that was the clock above the TV that you saw earlier, that can just tell the time, and we can do a countdown on that clock if we need to. In studio speakers, in case someone is actually speaking, we have the capability of also having remote presenters. If someone is presenting remotely and there's someone in the studio, so that everybody can hear each other. The Logitech host webcam, so that's one of those small webcams. It's just for the host, it's for the executive producer, but when they get everything started, they just use a small webcam that is in front of them to give that in-studio feeling for the participants. The 3 presenters iPad that they can use to either advance their presentation or see what's going on in a closer environment. Sometimes people are nearsighted, farsighted, they would need something closer, so we have those iPads. Studio on-air light, we actually have a light outside of the studio that we can turn on and off during the studio. The last thing that we need is someone just, coming in to tell us the story about their lunch break or whatever, what the amazing sandwich that they had while we have a presentation going on. So we have that on-air sign. Central Station U mugs, that's just those little mugs that we have on the table just to give it more of a TV station type of feeling. And the wall logos that you will see one on the next slide, but just logos on the back. That's one of them says Central Station U, and the other one is California State University, and they're interchangeable, so we can move them between one and the other. So that's really the studio itself, and what we use it for synchronous learning or live learning. As I said earlier, we can use the studio for some other functions as well, and I'll give you an example. On this slide, you can see Chancellor White in the studio, and we sometimes will record him. Chancellor White also has a challenge of trying to be at 23 campuses at any given time, and sometimes there's a ceremony or something that he's just not able to go to, so we will be using the studio. We have a teleprompter. You see the teleprompter, or the side of the teleprompter on the left side of the picture, where we can just film the chancellor. He would give a message, and then we would edit it and send it to the campus in view of Chancellor White being there. We also work with our Trustee Nylon from the Board of Trustees, and we film a report with them. We call it the Nylon Report. We do it after every Board of Trustees, and it's on YouTube if you want to check it out, where he gives an update to the alumni on the latest Board of Trustee meeting and some updates. And he also tries to interview some alumni that maybe were at the Board of Trustees and have an interesting story. We do video editing. So if sometimes departments have some needs for editing of videos, so we'll do that at the studio as well. And the last thing is rapid tutorials. Some of you might have seen the new Cal State Apply website, for example, and the Cal State Apply team, before they launched it, they needed some tutorials on how to use the Cal State Apply system for people that are applying to the CSU. And we created those tutorials for them so they can post them on their website. We've created a tutorial for conferences or other quick tutorials that people would need to use on the spot for whatever use it is. So I see a couple of questions here. COE report. I'm not sure what COE report is. I said Nylon report, so Trustee Nylon. Board of Trustees. So if you can clarify the question and maybe tell me when I talked about it, then what type of cameras do you use to record in the studio? So just for the regular video productions, we have some cameras. They're not the latest and greatest cameras. I can get you the model, Dr. Gautreau, if you want. I don't remember right now. It's a Panasonic. They're relatively simple cameras. To be honest, it's so hard to keep up to date with that. And since this is not our main area of production, those videos, we are not upgrading our equipment for those specific cameras just because they're so expensive and we would need to buy a new one every year. So we make with what we have, make do with what we have. Is there equipment that you would add, like a wish list? Well, a bigger studio would be nice. It gets a little tight there sometimes. I mean, it's a wish list. It's definitely a wish list. I'm grateful for what we have right now. We are right now looking at our main computer, the one that we built about 2 years ago with the special video cards and the memory and so on. And I think that that's one that we would have to look at upgrading. Having another switcher that is a fully professional switcher could be nice, but it could also be overkill for us. So I'm not sure that it would be necessary. But I think that we're at a good spot right now with the equipment. It took us a long time to get there, and as you saw at the beginning of the presentations, it was 6 Dell laptops that are out of circulation right now, and 6 small little webcams. So getting from there to the robotic cameras and the controllers, I think we've gone a long way. So pretty much at the end, I didn't want to get into too many details, but my email address here, if anybody has specific questions about models or need more information about any of, I will be more than happy to share that if you just email me. Other than that, if anybody has any other questions, happy to. And as a center, I'm counting to 10 quietly in my heart because I know what I'm supposed to do. I know it's also 6:35 on a Monday after a long weekend. So if anybody doesn't have any other questions, if you are ever at the Chancellor's office and you want to come and see the studio in person, I'll be more than happy to show you the studio as well. And otherwise, good luck to all of you. I saw Val earlier working on her homework for the MSIDT program, and I was happy that it wasn't me anymore. Happy to have graduated, but good luck to you guys for whatever program you're on. And again, thank you for listening to me.
Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you as well. See you soon.